Have you been asked to calculate the number of common shares that are outstanding on each cash dividend date and been given several transactions for the year but have no idea how to find out how many common shares are outstanding at each of those dates? Well, you've come to the right place because I'm Professor Capko and I'm going to show you how to do this in this video today. So how do you do it? Well, like this. All right. I know that is not exactly what you were looking for, so let's go ahead and dive down a little bit deeper into this to see how we do it. It's going to be a little bit longer video today and a little bit more detailed because we're going to put things that we've already learned into practice. But first, I want to mention that I believe something great is going to happen for you today. And now, back to the video. If you're someone who thinks that accounting is difficult and you see something like this and you start to panic, well, then give this video a thumbs up. That way I'll know that you would like more videos like this to show you how to solve this. Let's dive in. All right, we are given 4 dates for cash dividends. And we've got January 5th, April 5th, July 5th, and October 5th. And we want to know the number of outstanding shares. So we're going to fill in this down here with a number of shares. This is not money. This will be in number of shares outstanding, because the reason we want to know that is because cash dividends are paid upon the number of outstanding shares available. I've got some other videos that I've done about dividends, and if you want to see one of them, I've got one linked up here. You can watch that later on, but let's dive into this. You're given transactions throughout the year that may affect the equity in this particular company. Another thing you may be given, or hopefully you're given, would be some shareholders' equity information for the beginning of the year and for the end of the year. That would be the amount of common stock outstanding, the additional paid-in capital in excess of par, retained earnings, total stockholders' equity, but something that shows you how it changes from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, because that will help us figure out these numbers down here. I'm going to show you how to do this now. Our first date is January 5th. So that's toward the beginning of the year, and we want to know how many shares are outstanding. And we want to know that because they're going to declare a cash dividend. In this video, I'm not going to dive into calculating the amount of dividends because I have that in a different video, but we're going to show how to calculate the number of shares upon which we're going to pay the dividends. Let's take a look at our beginning of the year information here. So January 1st, we know that we have common stock, and it's $5 par value stock, and there's 4,700,000 shares that are authorized. Just because it's authorized doesn't mean it's issued, doesn't mean it's outstanding, and therefore we would not be paying dividends on any shares of stock that have not been issued and that are not outstanding. So we need to dive down until we can figure out how many shares are outstanding. This is very helpful because it tells us right here that 805,000 shares issued and outstanding. So they are out there in the hands of investors. And those are the folks who we're going to want to make sure we pay our dividends to. But that is at the beginning of the year. That's January 1st. We need what it is on January 5th. So I'm going to take a look to see if there's any transactions given between January 1st and January 5th that may impact that. I don't see any. The first transaction is the declaration of dividends. So there has been no change in the amount of shares outstanding. So we can go ahead and write in that number here, 805,000, because that's the number we were given as the beginning balance for the shares outstanding. Remember again, this is number of shares. This is not a dollar figure. We're going to multiply it by a dollar figure in another video. Next, we need to look for April 5th. We look at our transactions. We're not going to worry too much about the end of the year just yet, but we're going to see if we can figure out how, what we are going to have on April 5th. So we look at the next transaction. Some treasury stock was purchased. That means that the company went into the open market, purchased some of its own shares back from investors with cash and placed it into its own holdings. We call this treasury stock, and there's some other videos that I'm going to do that I delve into that in more detail. But just know that these shares that are purchased for treasury stock will no longer be considered outstanding because they're now held by the company. We need to figure out how many shares of treasury stock were purchased. We can look at the end of the year to find that out. It tells us there are 5,000 shares in treasury. Now that's the ending balance, so we want to check very carefully to see if there's any other transactions involving treasury, because even though it's been purchased, they could purchase more, or they could also sell some of the treasury stock. So we need to see, and once it's sold, it goes back into being outstanding. This is the only transaction that I see involving treasury stock. So we can comfortably surmise that the 5,000 shares in treasury stock are the 5,000 that are purchased on March 20th, particularly since there are no shares of treasury stock listed here. Had there been some treasury stock listed at the beginning balance or the beginning of the year, we would then see how they changed to be able to figure out how many were purchased. Since it appears that 5,000 were purchased, that means we're going to reduce our 805,000 shares outstanding by the 5,000 shares that are now in the treasury. We have 800,000 shares outstanding now for April 5th. That's the amount that they're going to calculate the cash dividend on April 5th for. We move on because we want to figure out July 5th. There appears to be no other transactions that involve a change in the number of shares outstanding. All that happened on April 5th was a declaration of cash dividend. That doesn't impact the number of shares outstanding, nor does the July 5th transaction, which also declared a dividend that would not change it. On July 5th, nothing changed. We're going to put down that same 800,000 share figure. Now we're heading toward October 5th. We're almost done with our chart. We're going to get that last one. We have taken care of all of these. Now we're to a 10% stock dividend when the market value was $15 per share. We are going to take 10% of the number of shares that are outstanding and pay a dividend on it. So our number of shares outstanding on July 31st, because there's been no changes between July 5th and July 31st, is 800,000. So we have 800,000 shares outstanding. We want to declare a dividend of 10%, so I'm going to multiply that by 10%, and that gives me 80,000 shares. 80,000 shares. So we're going to have an additional 80,000 shares. Every shareholder that has a share is going to get 10% more. So if you had 100 shares, you're going to get 10 more shares, and they're going to come out of the amount that is authorized but not issued. So we're going to issue new ones. They don't come out of the Treasury. They come out of these that are authorized but not issued. So we're going to have an additional 80,000 shares that are outstanding. We add that to our 800,000 that are outstanding. So we're going to have 880,000 shares at the end of the October 5th day, because that is the dividend was declared back in July, and the stock dividend was issued on August 14th. Therefore, on October 5th, we're going to have the additional 80 shares, and that gives us the 880,000. Now, we know that there was issued 805,000 shares, right? And we're going to add to that the 80,000 additional. So we have now 885,000 that have been issued. And if you look here at the end of the year, it shows you 885,000 shares issued. However, 5,000 of those shares are back into the Treasury, and that's why we only have 880,000. So that's one other way of looking at it. So that is how you fill out this chart showing the number of shares outstanding. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have questions or have something else you would like to have me do a video on, please put it down in the comments. Now you know how to fill this out, but I'm going to do some more videos on how to calculate the amount of dividends and how to arrive at the figures that we have here at the end of the year. And to know that, you're going to need to subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Thank you.